your vote in 2018 is every bit as important as your vote in 2016. Although I'm not sure I really believe that, but you know. I don't know who the hell wrote that line. I'm not sure. But it's still important, remember.
Okay, that was President Trump on Tuesday sending mixed messages to GOP voters on the 2018 midterms. And here to discuss that and more, Mary Jordan, national correspondent for The Washington Post, Steve Inskeep, host of NPR's Morning Edition, Wesley Lowery, national reporter for The Washington Post, and Kristen Soltis Anderson, Republican strategist and pollster and an ABC News contributor. Good morning to all of you. Great to have you here. Let's go back a little bit because you, Mary, were in Asia for 4 years as a correspondent for The Washington Post. You've been watching South Korea, North Korea very carefully. You saw them meet just over the weekend, the South and North. What do you think is going on here? What's your takeaway?
I think the first thing is it is on the peninsula of 75 million people. There's 50 million in the south, 25 million north. That embrace, the visual yesterday of the two leaders hugging each other, it can't be underestimated.
After the summit's canceled, supposedly.
I mean, it is stunning. I think it shows the hunger there, that the time is ripe right now to do something. And what's very interesting for Donald Trump is that there's kind of a willingness to even do it without him now. So he is going to have to, if he wants to be part of kind of a history-making pact, he is going to have to step up. So in addition to all the other dynamics, and surprise a minute, I think that within the country, I mean, North Korea is impoverished.
You know, the stunning visual of the satellite photo is something I always think of, where North Korea is in darkness except for Pyongyang, and it's all lit up, and South Korea is in the light. That's our economy right there.
You know, they don't have enough food. They see what's going on. Even though it's the hermit kingdom in the last few years, I think the pressure that's on here is that they know that on one side of them, China is prospering. In the south, the South Korea is prospering, and this is not tenable for the North Korea leader.
Things really have changed.
Yes.
That's a really good point. Steve, the president says everybody plays games. Do you think it'll happen?
Well, I mean, we've been asking, is this meeting going to happen or not? But the deeper question is, what is the meeting about? We heard Senator Rubio on this program say he doesn't believe that North Korea's Kim Jong-un wants to denuclearize. I had a conversation with a senior official this week who is very familiar with these negotiations, who said something that I think is really relevant here. I said, at any point leading up to this meeting, have the North Koreans agreed that the meeting is about North Korea giving up its nuclear weapons? And the official's answer was, no, they haven't said that. They know what we want. And so this official is optimistic. And we've heard different signals through the South Koreans. The South Koreans say certain things, but this official was saying in direct communications with the United States, they haven't heard that that's what the meeting is about. They are hoping that the North Koreans understand that that's what the United States expects. And you realize what a difficult negotiation this would be if it happens.
So do you think that's hedging on that, whether or not North Korea says, okay, we're going to talk about denuclearization?
I think
we'll go no matter what?
I think U.S. officials, many of them in this administration, are of the point of view that other intermediate steps besides completely giving up their nuclear weapons aren't very useful, because they don't trust the North Koreans, because there was an effort for a phase-in before in the 1990s, and it ended up with North Korea having nuclear weapons. So there's not a lot of confidence there, but there's not a lot of willingness on the North Korean side, which is why you have people like General Hayden on this program earlier saying what we need to do is some kind of intermediate step that at least gets the two sides talking and avoids a war, even if it doesn't actually solve the problem.
Okay, fascinating. And let's go to Spygate, Liegate. We got both those going. I think there was something like 500,000 tweets Spygate. As we've been saying this morning, that messaging from President Trump with no evidence is sticking.
This president understands that controlling the language that is used to discuss an issue is perhaps the most powerful thing that he can do. There are an awful lot of Americans who are going to spend Memorial Day weekend watching the Indy 500, going to barbecues, not digging deep into what's going on with the Russia investigation. And what he knows is that from the campaign, he could say, build the wall, make America great again. And these little phrases are the things that would stick. And for an electorate that pays attention from time to time but has very busy lives, having those phrases stick in people's minds is a very powerful tool. And what's fascinating about this president is he doesn't even pretend like that's not what he's trying to do. He has said on record, I'm trying to control the language. I'm trying to discredit the media so that my position looks more credible. These are games that are sometimes played in Washington where Donald Trump is taking it to a next level and is saying, I'm just going to confess that I'm playing the game.
And the Democrats, you heard Adam Schiff say, well, you just have to vote him out. In the meantime, what do? Their message not getting out as well?
Well, of course, and I think it was really interesting to me to hear Congressman Schiff say that, because there is a debate right now in the Democratic Party of how much of their hand to play in 2018 regarding the Russia investigation, a debate about whether or not you campaign on the idea of impeaching the President of the United States, a debate about whether or not you go out on the trail and say, look, you need to vote these guys out so we can hold this president accountable. There really is a battle over the identity of the Democratic Party right now. Is this going to be a party of resistance towards the president and the current Republican administration, or is this going to be a party that attempts to bring those Trump voters back into the fold? And right now, it's yet to be seen what's going to happen.
And I can say that Republicans would love nothing more than for Democratic candidates to go out on the trail on a message of let's impeach and obstruct this president. That Republicans had been struggling in the polls up until about 6 months ago, when suddenly tax reform passed, the economy started getting a little bit better, and now you have a lot of these voters in the middle who they may not like the tweets, they don't love the president's temperament, but they don't want to see him impeached. And so Republicans would love if Democrats adopted that message.
On that note, let's take a look at the midterm, Steve. We've seen a lot of enthusiasm for female candidates, an African-American woman running for governor in Georgia. What does that tell you where we are?
Well, it matters for congressional races when you have an African-American woman on the governor's race ticket, because it enthuses Democratic voters. But let's be clear that we don't actually know what's going to happen here. In early 2017, it was obvious that Democrats had no chance to capture either House of Congress. A few months ago, it was obvious that Democrats were going to capture both. Now it doesn't seem like we really know. We keep assuming that whatever the trend lines are right now, that they will endlessly continue. That's not necessarily the case. Democrats do have some challenges with their messages, as Wesley said. Republicans also have a problem, which is represented on the floor of the House of Representatives right now. There are a number of Republicans who want to vote on DACA, to give some kind of legal status to people who were brought here as children.
And President Trump making a lot of that in the last few days with tweets.
Exactly, a lot of that
blaming
in the last few
Democrats.
days. But it's the Republicans who are trying to overcome their own leadership, some Republicans, because you have Republicans in districts with large Latino voter bases, for example, who would like a vote on DACA and are really worried if they do not get it. You have other Republicans, and the leaders are with them, who think this will depress their base and depress people who really want a strong stance against
Mary,
immigration.
you're out there with voters a lot. You've done a lot for the Post, out there talking to voters. And what are you seeing?
Well, I just came back last night from Tennessee, which is a state that went 56%, went overwhelmingly for Trump, and still today, 56% are on his side. So I would say that this talk of the blue wave is really premature, because person after person was saying, you know, if he really pulls this off in North Korea, I mean, nobody's been able to do that, that there will even be more. I mean, there's just so many things that can happen up or down that would affect November that I think it's way too early.
And I can imagine if they say, if he didn't pull it off, that was the right thing to do. I mean,
probably.
But
then they're talking about taxes.
But it is messaging.
It is messaging.
And that is resonating with those.
And this really scary thing about the facts. And every so often, I mean, I was talking, person after person absolutely believes that he was spied on, that the deep state in Washington got him.
It works. It works.
It seems
it works.
works.
I want to close here and talk about the NFL. With NFL teams now facing a fine if someone takes a knee. And Wesley, you've followed all of this closely. Did the teams really cave to the president on this?
I think it's clear the teams caved to two pressure points, the President of the United States and their own fan bases. This was something, these protests were remarkably unpopular with many football fans. That said, I don't think that this conversation can happen in the absence of the big context, right? These were players who are protesting, black players, almost predominantly, or prominently black players, protesting police violence. Each day, 3 people are shot and killed by the police in the United States of America. Those people who are killed are disproportionately black men and black women. What we see here is the President of the United States, the leader of our government, using his bully pulpit, his platform to silence minority protesters who are demonstrating against violence by their government. This is the type of thing we like to tell ourselves doesn't happen in a country like the United States of America. This is a president putting his foot on the scale against people who would like to protest and demonstrate against their government and ask for what they were saying would be more equitable and equitable treatment.
Has that message been lost in a way? I mean, we keep reminding people that that's what that protest is really about. Has the message of the NFL players been lost in the controversy, or is that the idea of it?
Well, I think that is part of the idea of it, to strip away this discussion around policing and make this about the flag, to make this about patriotism. You understand why many people might get that impression or might have some confusion, although at this point, years into this conversation, you would hope if you were paying attention, you would understand what these players are demonstrating about. In fact, Colin Kaepernick, the initial protester, initially was sitting down and after having a conversation with a veteran, changed it to kneeling to try to be more respectful to the troops. But that said, again, I think that beyond the president and the politics there, this is an interesting decision by the NFL.
The country is divided on this.
Extremely.
But in little towns all over America this weekend, there are stories in little papers about how to respect the flag. And I'm sorry, but I don't think that people even know why those players were taking
what
a
I
knee.
mean about
And they
losing
just,
the message.
it's a visual of disrespect, and it did not go down well.
Steve, we got 20 seconds.
Okay.
You understand that?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Standing for the flag is an act of devotion. It's an act of love of country. And you can say that you ought to do it, but we choose to do it. If the NFL makes it mandatory that you must do it, it just means less. It's less meaningful when you're forced to do that.
Okay, thanks to all of you for joining us on this Memorial Day weekend.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.